I'm now getting to the point where I'm thinking, where is the urgency? Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Rev Dan. I'm a vicar in the Church of England, and this is Digging Deeper, where I take a subject from my Rev Dan's Roundup. That's where I round up the news inside and outside of the Christian world, and I dig deeper into that story. And this is one part of the story. Actually, last week I recorded my video. I went into the church on a Friday afternoon. I spent some time in the church so people can come and see me and speak to me, and for me to get time to pray with them as well. Sometimes it's not busy, sometimes it is. A friend sent me an article from the Spectator. Well, no, actually, I saw it online. A friend sent me another article, which I'm going to use in a bit in the video. I saw this article online, and from the Spectator, which is titled "Inside the Fastest Growing and Shrinking Churches in the UK." And so I took time and I read that article as I was walking around the church. I tried to do 10,000 steps a day, and so I spend that time wisely, get walking, keep them moving. And so I read this article, and then I started to think about this article. It's also kind of linked to a video that I did before about which denomination is going to die first, which one's going to go first. You can watch that here. And I started to think, if my church and other denominations as well are on their way out, right? And this is done by a mathematician, figures in, figures out, no movement of God. My denomination, or the Church of England, should I say, Anglicanism and the Church of England in England will disappear by the 2050s, 2060s. And I'm like, where's the urgency? Like now I'm walking around and I'm thinking, wow, this is if you was in business or anything, that we can relate to in the real world, I forgot how to say it because you live in a bubble in the church, you would think this is a problem. So I'm there thinking, we've got so many church buildings that is just as assets and things like that. You have to not just talk about the buildings, but the vicarages and all those things, the halls. You have to deal with these, and who deals with them when the money's running out from people because you're getting less congregation, less giving, etc., etc. And so it's not just the extinction; it's the problems that can build up before, and there's no urgency. Well, I'm not hearing. I might be missing it. I might just be missing it. But I am looking at the Christian news weekly, and when it comes, people send me stuff, and I look through, see what's going on. So I kind of get an understanding, and I'm not hearing, not just from my denomination, but from other denominations in the same situation. This urgency of something might have to happen. Now there is, and we'll look at that in a bit, a movement. Probably not the way you expect. You would think like if there's an urgency, you flood the front line with the most effective people to get out there to evangelize the nation, build up your churches. That isn't happening. But anyway, so that so I've been dwelling on this and thinking, we have our Archbishop now, Justin Welby, who retires if he takes it that far, January 2026, on his 70th birthday. Might go before, might not, but say we're going to go in so it's 2026, so say each archbishop for the next 3 decades, we've got 3 more archbishops, so 26 to 36, and say 25 to 35 to 45 to 55 to 65. You might have 3 or 4 archbishops. Look at the current crop of bishops at the moment, and you're like, well, who could it be? And then you got people coming through. We know it's all a lot political as well. And anyway, is there a good archbishop? Will be the next key appointment. The next one will be key for really getting us out of this mess. If we have a chance. I mean, we're not going to get ourselves out of this mess now. We need a movement of God, a call to holiness. So maybe in a sense, the way that I see the same-sex blessings in the Church of England, living in love and faith, is a call back to holiness, a call back to orthodoxy, a call back to the Bible, and maybe that's how God is using this, and will regrow the church. We go to a remnant, but stand on the authority of God and His Word, and we grow out of there. I think the bishops think that, by going down the same-sex blessings and eventually marriage route, that will bring a lot of people to church. But as we'll see in the article from The Spectator, that really isn't happening in any denomination. So anyway, let's get into this article, this first one for the Spectator. So it's looking at the fastest growing and shrinking churches in the UK. So I'm not going to go through all of it, just bits that are relevant. It says, it's Sunday morning at an Elim Pentecostal church in London and the place feels alive. Oh, that's the key, isn't it? Oh, churches that feel alive. Like you walk in, you feel this profound, you just feel it. There's a sense of the presence of the Holy Spirit moving. Fittingly, for perhaps the fastest growing Christian community in the UK. Over the past 25 years, Elim's membership has risen from 50,000 to 75,000, according to statistician Peter Briley. The figure is striking when you consider the overall picture of Christianity in the UK. The census revealed that for the first time, less than half the country identified as Christian, a fall of 7 million people over a decade. So well done, Elim, and I got some friends in Elim. Well done, you're doing an amazing job. The current trend in the West is Christianity is dying, and you're bucking the trend, and that's it's down to what you're doing, and standing on the authority of the gospel. The census, I never read too much into the census. It's bums on seats. People living a discipled life of Christ. That's what counts for me. People saying they're Christian or not gives an indication, but as many people who say they're Christian in the census, we don't see that reflected in church. But it is a downward trend. So even people thinking they're not Christian anymore is a big thing. So it goes on. Yet while certain kinds of Christian practice are fading, it seems others are very much not. In recent decades, thousands of new churches of all varieties have sprung up across the country. London's Sunday attendance is 10% higher than 40 years ago. Vast congregations have flourished if you know where to look. Now, see, that's a key thing, if you know where to look, where it's about going to the right place. John Hayward, a former maths lecturer, has produced a model to track which churches are growing and which are shrinking. This is the one that I referenced in my video. He focuses on the R number, made famous by the pandemic, but long employed by statisticians for anything that spreads through person-to-person contact. Rumours, internet trends, social contagions, such as bulimia, urban riots. Put simply, if churches aren't making more Christians, then they are losing. The R number falls below the crucial threshold of 1 and decline sets in. He published a study in the UK of UK church groups, which makes for sober reading, and it does. Well, so bad that I used it in a video, and I've known other people reference it as well. Hayward's own congregation, the church in Wales, is declining at such a rate that, on the assumption that nothing changes, it will be extinct at some time in the 2030s. That's the next decade, people. It's kind of scary. Just after the Welsh Presbyterians. In the 2040s, it will be the turn of the Scottish Episcopalians, the Methodists, and the Church of Scotland. The last rites of the Anglicans and Catholics will be read in the 2060s. The more charismatic and evangelical churches, such as Elim, New Frontiers, and the Fellowship of Independent Evangelical Churches, have a healthy R rate. Everyone else is below the line. So go watch that video if you got time. It gives a good lot of information, and it is sobering. Thriving churches, Hayward says, are very intentional about what they do. They are very clear in their beliefs, particularly about the urgency of accepting Christ, since one's eternal destiny is at stake. And this is what I keep coming back to now, myself, with this whole same-sex blessings the Church of England's going through, and what do you believe, and blah, 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 blah. And I always come back to, do you believe in heaven and hell? It really starts there, and believing what the Bible says, and it really is. It is. Are you going to heaven or you're not going to heaven? So, the article goes on, rather than, well, everybody here believes something and we're not really sure, but we can always put on an event and maybe someone will come along, which is true. That's what a lot of churches do. Let's put something on and people might come along. People might, but they might, well, I would say might not, they probably won't stay. One theory is that communities which make such demands are more likely to inspire serious commitment. Strange that. And especially in a world today where there's people have brought up for a long time with so few rules, and people like rules. And when you come along and say Christianity has rules and these are the rules, they kind of go, wow, this is actually quite good. It helps us have a boundaried life and a more fulfilling life at that. In Britain, at least, the theory has recent history on its side. The Anglican vicar David Kitchew, a leading researcher of church growth, summarised the evidence. Those trimming faith to fit in with culture have tended to shrink, and those offering a full-fat faith, vividly supernatural, have tended to grow. This is as true of the ultra-liturgical Orthodox as it is of the ultra-informal Pentecostals. And it absolutely is true. I've always said people worship in different ways. And that's, for some people it isn't a choice. It's just, I prefer this, I prefer liturgy. Some people are, no, I just like it to be free. But it doesn't, for me, it doesn't matter how you worship, as long as it's based on the gospel, on the authority of God and his word. And however you worship, whichever is your preference, fine. But, on the authority of God. And those churches, as long as they are based on that, are growing. Surprise, surprise, right? The plight of Anglicanism is acute. And this is Church of England now here. Just 3% of under 25s describe themselves as Anglican. So this is a point that I read in this article, and I go, okay, we are in trouble. But then I'm like, where's the urgency? Like 3% of under 25s describe them as Anglican. And even that 3% of under 25s can drift away. Where are they in their lives? They're teenagers, they're going off to university, and how's their discipleship? So it'd be interesting in that 3% in when they're above 25, if it's still 3% or a lot less. So last week, Justin Welby said it might not all be bad, that faith has declined dramatically. I rejoice in less of a bossy attitude and of the church stepping back from telling everybody what to do. A church which doesn't tell people what to do may, as well be implies, be learning a new humility, or it may be just suffering a fatal loss of confidence. But people want to be told. They want to be told. They want to be guided, and especially people that don't know Jesus Christ. And we are guiding them, and it's not done in a horrible way. It's done through love. It's Ephesians 4:15. Speak the truth in love, and so we're doing that. We're not just rah, 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 rah. No, we're saying no. You have to live your life this way, but we're doing that because God wants you to have a fulfilling life, and and we're losing not only just confidence, but the authority as well. People don't see us as authoritative on scripture. What do you know, they say. They say to me, you don't know the Bible. Forget that, I'm called by God. I go to get a degree and stuff in theology and further, and education in it, and then be told you don't know anything because we've lost the authority, let alone confidence. So it's not a good picture. So I'm like, we are in a bad place. We're in a bad place, and how do we get out of it? Where's the urgency? Where's the bishops leading their diocese on this, getting out and shouting? We need to evangelize. We need to, as I said, put people on the coalface in parishes, in churches, and just try. This might be the last throw of the dice. But Orthodox people, by the way, and just get a strategy of just being out there. But here's an example of what one diocese is doing, and for me it's quite disastrous, and shows the way that the Church of England is going in one way or another. So this one was actually sent by a friend, which says from the Times: quarter of Cornish churches fail to offer a Sunday service. So brutal cuts to the number of priests in the Truro diocese is leading to a decline in normal church life, campaign group says. Now we know that Christianity, our faith, is not a 1 hour Sunday morning faith. It's a 7-day faith. But that 1 hour on a Sunday morning is where we come together corporately as a community, brothers and sisters in Christ, to worship God, to give thanks and praise to him for all that he's given us and all that he's done for us. It's about him, not about us. So in one sense, we're not giving to God what he deserves, if we're, especially in Cornwall, when a quarter of the Church of England churches are closed. But in reality, with that in hand, that if people are thinking about Christianity, thinking about faith, they go, well, where do I go? I know, I'll go to church on a Sunday morning, because that's all they know. I'll go to a church on a Sunday morning. They get to the church and it's closed. So, what, they're going to walk away disappointed. They might go, I'll go try another one, and then it's closed. So this article says, and now we're looking at Church of England, specifically diocese here, but thinking about the Church of England as a whole. So this diocese of Truro says more than a quarter of the churches in Cornwall are failing to offer a Sunday service. Analysis by the Telegraph. Sorry, I said Times, it's a Telegraph. Telegraph. Hopefully I made up for it. Has revealed across 287 churches in the county, 78 had no forms of Sunday worship. No forms. Advertised on the last weekend of September, a total of 27%. Now, fine. In a sense, you can say, well, there's not enough priests around, and there's a reality, there's not enough priests. By the way, there's not enough priests coming through the training, and so we're going to end up in an awful situation. But, and that's me whispering. But what I've heard, is something I want to look into, but I've been told there's not enough people are holding back because of the same-sex blessings and the left debate and what's going to happen in November, so they're not going through to training, meaning we're not getting good people, Orthodox people through. So it's not good. Need to find out more information on that. But okay, so we've got not enough priests, but what about the laity? They can run some forms of service, quite simple service, but that's not happening. So these churches are just closed, and that's where it's really bad. It's like the laity aren't there to even open them. So 27% of churches are closed on that particular weekend. Of those that did open, just 114 advertised that communion was being offered, considered by many Christians to be the most important sacrament. And in the Church of England, we're very, you could say we're sacramental in that, and we have to have communion weekly, or we should have communion weekly. Recognising not every church does, they have it monthly, but so you would say Church of England is very associated with communion. And in that of 114, that's not 114 individual priests doing communion, by the way. That'd be perhaps a lot less than 100, because you are doing one communion and going to do another. So responding to the data, the Reverend Marcus Walker, chairman of the campaign group Save the Parish, said, "It can come as no shock to anybody that if you reduce the number of priests, you reduce the number of services. If you reduce the number of services, you reduce the number of people going to church. But if you haven't got laity, you're definitely reducing the number of people." The Church of England has hundreds of millions of pounds to throw at pet courses. Now it's time to put that money back where it's supposed to be spent: parish ministry. So this thing, the church has got a lot of money, and I wouldn't throw it. I'll be quite strategic, and you can't just fill every parish church with a priest. There's not that many, enough Orthodox priests to go around, by the way. And but you can be strategic with it, and rather than close churches. But it's not just about the money; it's about the urgency. You kind of want, like football manager on the side of a pitch, or any manager of sports, because like you're losing, come on, and rallying, come on, and not just encouraging, but sometimes using the carrot and the stick. But it just doesn't feel like it's happening, and I want to see that urgency, because at the end of the day, right? Okay, it's not about denomination for me. At the end of the day, we speak about that. The more denominations go, right? That means the more people are going to hell. The more people are not responding to the gospel of Jesus Christ because we're not out there evangelizing. And the more denominations that there are that are orthodox, then the more people are going to hear the gospel. And we have to be brave in that. So that comes back to the authority and confidence and things. It's just, a lot of things are not going the right way. So the article goes on. The analysis looked at the weekly advertised schedules of churches, either on a church near you, the Church of England's official roster of all churches, which I don't know what that is, as well as on individual diocese websites, which, do they advertise? Maybe they do in that website. Furthermore, out of 23 out of the total 287 churches in Cornwall, no evidence of any service was found throughout the whole of September this year. So that's, you try to have a service once a month, even if it's an afternoon service or an evening service. So 23 churches are not having a service, which is very, very sad. In fact, the same person who sent me this article sent me an advert for a church being sold up north. A church dating back, if I remember, to the 1100s, 1200s for £75,000. And it's just not being used, so they're selling it. And it kind of broke my heart. It's just like that history, and it's just being sold. And I'll put a link below because, someone should just go put a church plant, buy it, get funding, buy it and bring it alive. It's not the church building, get the right person and they bring it alive. And by the way, no PCC, no, you could make this your own. Sad, it's sad, but that's the way a lot of churches are going to happen. A lot of churches are going to be sold off, just won't want them. But this wasn't like a Victorian modern-ish one. It was ancient, hundreds of years of worship in there. Now it's just being sold. So here's a little graph that the Telegraph has done. Church parishes are declining at the fastest rate on record. The source is Telegraph analysis of Church of England data, so they've made this data, so always pinch of salt. I'm not being horrible to Telegraph, but let's just take it as a pinch of salt, that's what I'm saying. So no churches closed between 2011 and 2016, but there's a big rate in the previous 5 years and the 5 years before that. So more churches closing, but there's from 1960 to 86, that's quite a few years, there's a few churches closing. So churches are closing now more, and they will more now. The figures came out. The figures came after earlier this month an investigation by the newspaper revealed that parishes are closing at a record rate, with almost 300 disappearing in the past 5 years. The Telegraph also published details of a bombshell dossier accusing bishops and C.G. Curley of putting a gun to people's heads to drive through controversial plans to cut costs, merge parishes and cut vicars in Cornwall. The claims also come against the backdrop of declining congregation numbers, leaving many clergy afraid to speak out for fear of losing their jobs. I have heard this as well. I've heard this, people have reached out. It's a precarious position for clergy at the moment, and laity and their churches. I think the words forced through have been heard by these ears a lot, that people didn't want change, but they've been forced change, or it's been forced through, and people want to leave. They love their church and they're quite lost now, and especially when you're taking away the parish priest. So, and I could be only hearing of one side, I'll admit that, but that's what I'm hearing. There might be other people who are happy. Comment below if you are one of those who's think. It says this is really good. It's really good. want to hear the other side as well. It could be this. I have said when I've done a video about Truro and Leicester that you have to be fair, that this could be what God might use or God is using to grow the church. We could be wrong. It doesn't feel like it, but it might, closing some of these churches, or these churches not having vicars, having to run around, might mean that they're fully concentrated on their local church or a local church, and put more time into that rather than being there and then rushing through the service to go run off on another service. So you can see the advantages in one way, but the way the Church of England works is a church parish, and we serve every inch of the land. So we are going against that. So we have to either change our model or say, or be truthful for what we're doing. Anyway, moving on. Save the Parish Cornwall, a local branch of the national campaigning body, compiled a dossier detailing concerns of clergy and congregants regarding the Church of England's reorganisation scheme in the Diocese of Truro called On the Way, which aims to merge parishes. Campaigners claim that the scheme is forcing dozens of parishes together in giant benefices and starving them of regular priests. And that although their dossier relates specifically to the Diocese of Truro, it reveals a pattern of change that is spreading nationwide and acts as a blueprint for what is to come across the nation. Each diocese can choose what each diocese wants to do, but there are changes afoot in many dioceses. Leicester's doing something similar to Truro, but there are cuts and things across diocese in one way or another. Says churches have not had to hold weekly Sunday services since 2019 after General Synod scrapped the obligations which have been in place since the 17th century. Vicars in rural areas who have been increasingly responsible for serving multiple congregations across a number of churches due to decline in the number of clergy have been struggling to meet regular Sunday obligations in every church prior to the canon law change, which is true. So that is a positive in that one sense. Responding to the Telegraph's latest analysis, a Save the Parish Cornwall representative said that in one diocese, just 2 priests, a curate and an unpaid retired cleric were now responsible for 23 churches, and one of those priests does not work on Sundays. I hope it's the retired one. They added the bishops to pursue brutal cuts in the number of priests and wasted millions of pounds on church money on reorganising parishes and benefices into ever big groups, with the inevitable results that the Telegraph has discovered. This is a direct and depressingly predictive result of the Diocese of Truro's catastrophic mishandling of church life in Cornwall over several years. It's and I keep coming up with referencing this. There's something called antidote to evidence, antidote to evidence. Anyway, something like that, which says in there, where a church grows is when it's got one parish priest to one church, and that's typical growth. That's where it usually grows. Beyond that, it doesn't really. The more churches you've got, it doesn't grow. So, and this for me is like interregnums, where you got retired clergy, or people serving them just to do services ever so often, and you get the laity to do most of the work, which, in interregnum, that's when the church hasn't got a vicar. It's quite hard. So so it's coming out not a good article. I would say that I have spoken to people in the Church of England who say, some of these papers have got a bias against the Church of England. We have to hold what the facts are, even if it's slightly is biased. Facts are facts, and we can check facts. Anyway, let's get on. There's simply nowhere enough priests to conduct normal church life. Sunday services, acts, pastoral care of churchgoers disappeared. Fewer opportunities to hear the Sunday morning church bells ring. Less and less chance of Cornwall's committed Christians to receive proper communion. It's causing huge distress, despair and division among the church-going faithful of Cornwall. A spokesman for the Diocese of Truro, who covers Cornwall as well as a small part of Devon, disputed the latest findings. What I'd like to see, just checking the next slide, is what they disputed and the facts to argue against. That would be amazing. If anyone knows those, put that in the links in the comment below there when they disputed the facts, the true facts. Because if you dispute, you got to put your evidence there. I'm not saying they're not doing it, by the way, people. I'm saying it'd be great to see that, because if I'm saying the Telegraph might be against the Church of England, well, I would want to see, and the Church of England prove that they are, and see those facts, that what they're reporting are basically disputed. So it says they called the figures inaccurate and unreliable, but declined to supply any of their own figures in response. See, I was looking for that, and then I didn't. I kind of hovered over it. So they say they're inaccurate and unreliable, but declined to supply any of their own figures in response. So, I suppose if they're going on a church near you and these websites, it's easy to check, isn't it? So that would be not something I have time to do, but if anyone's out there. A spokesman for the Church of England said that worship is central to the Church of England's ministry. In rural and sparsely populated areas, a multi-church parish can rotate services between churches, where it is impractical to hold weekly services in every church, which is true. There is nothing new. This is nothing new. It reflects the demographic changes over centuries as people have moved from rural areas to cities. I don't think. People have, but that would mean that there's lots of empty houses in those rural areas. So you could point to that, look at the proportion of empty houses that we have, that people aren't living in, and that's proven that people are moving to cities. But if those houses aren't empty, it's a change. So let's be fair. Is it thriving in your church, in your area? Let's not just take individual churches. Area, your denomination, unless you're Elim or New Frontiers or FIEC, because you're already thriving. Do we not need a sense of urgency from those who are leading us? Is that not their job? Is it down to us, the local parish priest, to move? And let's be fair again. Let's say it's not the bishop's responsibility. Where's the urgency from local parish priests? Where's the urgency to see that your church is dying and getting out there? Getting out there. I ask myself, how much time, what percentage of my time have been spent on the church and spent outside of the church for people don't know? And, it's an embarrassingly high rate spent in the church. Not saying that the church don't need it, but if we want the church to grow, we need to get out there and meet people where they're at, especially in society today. Whatever it might be. And we will all have our own opinions, and I think they'll be aligned. There isn't urgency. Christianity is dying through the West on a massive scale throughout denominations. A few denominations are thriving. But we want the whole Christendom to thrive. We worship in different ways, and so the whole Orthodox. So I was just thinking, the liberal church is dying. So you get the liberal church in all denominations now, not all, should I say, but yeah, we're talking. Now, I'm going to get off track. Urgency. Where is the urgency? I want to see urgency. Because, again, it's not about denominations. At the end of the day, it's about people who are either going to heaven or going to hell. And we need to be out there proclaiming the gospel for God's glory and to grow his kingdom. And we're not doing that. And we will all, as Christians, in our each individual ways to what God has called us to, be accountable to that. And maybe that's what we're not concentrating on as well. Maybe that's the stick that we need.